Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm Six-Path Weeb, and today we're diving into an intriguing topic. What if Naruko were expecting a child? This scenario opens up a range of possibilities and character developments worth exploring. Disclaimer, the content on this channel is intended for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Let's get started. In the hidden village of Konoha, nestled between mountains and forests, a baby girl was born on a rainy autumn morning. Her name was Naruko Uzumaki. With golden hair as bright as the sun and deep blue eyes that seemed to hold the whole sky, she came into the world alone, but destined for something extraordinary. The villagers, though, didn't welcome her with smiles or celebration. Whispers followed her as she grew, and people turned away from her in the streets. Naruko didn't understand why at first. She just knew she was different. As a toddler, Naruko learned quickly how to entertain herself. She'd draw on the sides of buildings with chalk she made from crushed pebbles, or she'd chase after butterflies in the training fields until she was covered in dirt and laughter. She didn't have parents to tell her bedtime stories or tuck her in at night, but she had dreams, wild ones, full of colors and heroes and warmth. Every night, before falling asleep in her small apartment, she'd whisper to the stars, "Someday, someone will see me." By the time she reached the ninja academy, Naruko had built a shield around her heart made from jokes, pranks, and a stubborn smile. She'd paint silly faces on the Hokage monument or sneak into the academy early just to rearrange all the chalk. Her teachers called her a troublemaker, and the other kids mostly stayed away. But Naruko didn't stop. She had a dream that kept her going, a dream of becoming the first female Hokage, a dream of being acknowledged, of being loved. She struggled in class, not because she lacked effort, but because the pain of being ignored wore her down. She often sat alone at lunch, watching the other children chatter and laugh, wondering what it would feel like to be invited in. But even then, she kept her spirits high. "If I can't make friends now, I'll make the whole village my friend one day," she would say with a grin, even if her voice trembled at the end. There were a few bright spots. Iruka-sensei, though strict, had a kind heart and saw through her noisy defenses. He gave her encouragement when she needed it most, and sometimes, when no one was looking, he'd slip her extra snacks or let her stay behind to practice. And then there was the quiet comfort of ramen at Ichiraku's. Old Tucci and his daughter Ayame never looked at her with fear or suspicion. They just served her hot bowls of miso with a smile, and sometimes, that was all Naruko needed to feel like she mattered. Even in loneliness, Naruko's heart remained wide open. She had a secret strength, one that grew with every day she got back up, every time she believed in herself when no one else did. Deep down, she held on to hope like a tiny flame, protecting it against the cold. And somewhere within her, something ancient and powerful stirred, watching. Waiting. Learning to love the girl who had been so unfairly cast aside. As Naruko grew older, her life slowly began to shift, like the way winter quietly turns to spring. She was still the girl with messy blonde hair, bright eyes, and a dream bigger than herself, but now she was a genin, wearing her headband with pride. She still woke up every morning in her little apartment above the quiet alleyway near the market, where sunlight peeked through her window and the sound of birdsong stirred her awake. Her mornings were always the same. She'd yawn, stretch like a cat, and jump out of bed with boundless energy. Her small space was cluttered with scrolls, ninja tools, and colorful clothes she hardly folded. After brushing her teeth and throwing on her orange jacket, she'd race downstairs, her stomach growling loud enough to echo. Most mornings, breakfast was something simple, a cold rice ball or, if she had time, a fried egg sandwich she slapped together with practice speed. Chores came next. She'd sweep her apartment floor, scrub the sink, and water the little potted plant that Ayame had given her last year. The plant had been drooping when she got it, but just like Naruko, it had stubbornly refused to wilt. She even named it Hero. Once her place was halfway clean, Naruko standards, at least, she'd dart off toward the training grounds or her next mission assignment. Despite the growing responsibilities of a young ninja, Naruko still found time to cause the occasional harmless mischief. But lately, something else had started tugging at her attention. Something strange. Something warm. It began one sunny afternoon when Team 7 had just returned from a D-rank mission involving herding very stubborn goats. The whole team had been exhausted, sweaty, and covered in fur, but Naruko had been grinning anyway. As they walked back through the village, she found herself glancing sideways at Sasuke, not out of rivalry this time, but curiosity. The way his hair fell into his eyes, the way he carried himself, always calm, always a little distant. It made her heart thump in a way that made her stop mid-step. She blinked, confused, then quickly shook the feeling away. No way. Not him. He's a total ice cube, she muttered under her breath. But still, her eyes followed him when she thought no one was looking. Days passed, and the feeling didn't go away. She'd noticed the way Sasuke always walked ahead, not out of rudeness, but habit. The way he'd sometimes glance over his shoulder if she tripped or fell behind. He never said much, but there were little things, like how he silently handed her a canteen after training, or how he never insulted her when she made a mistake, even if the others did. It wasn't love, not yet. Naruko didn't even really understand what love felt like, not the kind in storybooks or songs. But something gentle was blooming in her chest, and it wasn't just admiration anymore. Meanwhile, her days carried on like a rhythm she knew by heart. Training with Kakashi-sensei, trying to outmatch Sasuke in sparring, laughing with, or at, Sakura during missions, and returning home in the evenings with bruises and stories. She'd make a quick dinner, usually cup ramen, then collapse onto her bed with her arms flopped over her head. And sometimes, before sleep came, she'd catch herself daydreaming. Wondering what it would be like to hold someone's hand. Not in battle. Not for show. Just because. She didn't tell anyone, of course. Feelings like that were confusing and awkward. Besides, who would ever look at her like that? She was loud, messy, weird, and Sasuke was everything she wasn't. Cool. Quiet. Desired by everyone. Still, she couldn't help but smile to herself sometimes, like when she found a wildflower on her walk home and stuck it in her hair, just to see if anyone would notice. Or when she passed by the bookstore and peeked into the romance section before darting away, cheeks red. Her heart was changing, softening, opening. And even though she didn't quite know it yet, her story was only just beginning. The feelings Naruko had begun to experience, strange, fluttery, and new, kept her wondering for days. But it wasn't Sasuke who stayed on her mind anymore. That crush faded like the tail end of a summer storm, sudden and harmless in the end. What replaced it was something deeper, quieter, and much more real. It started on a day that seemed ordinary. She had just finished a solo errand mission, delivering scrolls between two minor offices within the village. The sun was dipping low behind the rooftops, turning the sky into a soft canvas of orange and pink. She walked past the training field where she usually sparred, half expecting to see no one, when a sound caught her ear, the thud of fists hitting wood. Someone was there, training alone. He was about her age, maybe a little taller, with dark brown hair that curled at the edges and warm, honey-colored eyes. His name was Hiroto. A newly promoted genin from a quiet clan known more for their craftsmanship than jutsu. Naruko had seen him once or twice during academy days, but they'd never really spoken. She paused, watching him throw precise punches at a wooden post, sweat clinging to his neck, but his expression calm and focused. She admired that, his quiet strength. He wasn't flashy or proud. Just determined. Not bad, she called out with a grin, stepping closer. He turned, startled at first, then offered a small smile. Thanks. You're Naruko, right? Yup. The one and only, she said, striking a ridiculous pose. Hero of the village, future Hokage, ramen connoisseur, prank legend, need I go on? He laughed, a real, open laugh that made Naruko pause. It wasn't mocking or forced. It was warm. That was the start of something new. They began to run into each other more often. Not by accident, not really. They trained in the same field, took missions that sometimes overlapped, and sometimes, when the sun was low and the day was long, they'd just sit side by side on the stone steps by the academy and talk. Naruko found herself telling him things she hadn't said out loud before, about her dreams, her loneliness, the way people looked through her sometimes like she didn't exist. And Hiroto listened. Not out of pity, but because he truly wanted to know her. He didn't try to fix her or act surprised. He just nodded, offered the occasional smile, and told her his own quiet truths. That he never felt strong enough for his clan. That he was afraid of not standing out. That sometimes, he wondered if he mattered at all. They were different, but alike in all the ways that counted. Naruko started looking forward to those moments more than anything else in her day. Her chores felt lighter. Her ramen tasted better. The village, once full of cold stares and whispered words, seemed a little warmer when Hiroto was around. He'd wait outside Ichiraku sometimes after missions, or walk her home if it got dark. Once, he even brought her a clumsy bouquet of wildflowers, half of them bent, one still with a beetle clinging to the stem. She loved it. Sometimes, their hands would brush when they sat together. Once, He reached over and tucked a stray piece of hair behind her ear. Her heart had pounded so hard she thought it would give her away. She didn't say it out loud yet. Neither did he. But in the quiet space between laughter and goodbye, something bloomed, gently, steadily, between them. It wasn't a crush. It wasn't a game. It was the start of love. As the weeks passed, Naruko found herself changing in ways she didn't quite expect. Her usual loud energy was still there, she was still the girl who leapt onto rooftops and shouted her dreams to the sky, but now there was a quiet part of her that felt calm. Like there was a soft space in her chest reserved just for him. Hiroto. They didn't make grand declarations or exchange dramatic words. That wasn't who they were. Instead, it was in the little things. The way he'd pass her a towel after training before she even asked. The way she'd remember his favorite dumplings and bring them back from the market, acting like it was just a coincidence. They started spending more time together outside of missions. Sometimes they'd help each other with chores. Naruko would drag him to her place and laugh as he tried to sweep her always messy apartment without tripping over ninja gear. You live like a whirlwind, he teased once, balancing a kunai on a ramen lid. And you clean like a grandma, she shot back, but she didn't stop smiling for the rest of the day. Other days, they'd explore the outskirts of Konoha, finding hidden spots to rest. One favorite place was a shaded hill overlooking the village, where the wind always seemed to whisper softly through the trees. They'd sit there in the grass, watching clouds roll by, sharing rice balls or stories. Naruko talked about wanting to be Hokage, not for the title, but to protect the people who never protected her. Hiroto listened, eyes thoughtful. I think you'd be a good one, he said once, pulling a blade of grass and tying it into a knot. You care too much to fail. That made her blink. People had laughed at her dream. Dismissed it. But he didn't. And somehow, that meant more than she could say. Some evenings, when the sky turned purple and gold, they'd walk through the village side by side. Not quite holding hands, not yet, but close enough that their fingers would brush. And every time it happened, Naruko's heart fluttered in her chest like a bird testing its wings. She didn't know when it happened, when the way she looked at him changed. One day she was just glad to see him, the next, she caught herself wondering what it would be like to fall asleep next to him, to wake up and see that same calm smile in the morning light. She'd lie in bed at night, her chores done, her body sore from training, and think of him. Sometimes she whispered his name into her pillow, embarrassed but glowing. It wasn't a crush. It wasn't just friendship anymore. It was something steadier, deeper. A quiet bond that made her feel seen and safe. One quiet night after a long mission, they sat on the roof of Naruko's apartment. The stars blinked above them, and the wind carried the soft scent of wood smoke. She had a blanket draped around her shoulders, and Hiroto sat beside her, close enough that their arms touched. Hey, she said after a long silence. Have you ever liked someone so much it scared you? He turned to her, surprised. His voice was soft. Yeah. There was a pause. Naruko looked down at her hands, twisting the fabric of her sleeve. What did you do? Hiroto didn't answer right away. Then he leaned in, just a little, brushing his shoulder against hers. I sat beside them and waited until they felt the same. Naruko looked at him, really looked at him. The warmth in his eyes, the quiet way he held space for her. It was so different from what she thought love would be. No fireworks. No big dramatic scene. Just this peaceful, steady thing that wrapped around her gently, like a hand closing over her heart. She didn't say anything. She just leaned her head against his shoulder. And Hiroto didn't move away. In that moment, the world grew quiet, and Naruko knew. She was in love. As the seasons turned, so did the quiet rhythm of their lives. Spring melted into summer, and with it came longer missions, harder training, and the heat of the sun pressing down on the village. Naruko was growing, not just as a kunoichi, but as a person. Stronger. Wiser. Softer, too, in ways she never expected. She and Hiroto had become inseparable, though they never made a big deal of it. That wasn't their style. To everyone else, they were just teammates sometimes, friends often. But behind quiet glances and shared silence, their bond deepened. One evening after a long B-rank mission outside the village, the two of them were assigned to return scrolls to the Hokage's office. It was late, the streets were mostly empty, lit by lanterns swinging gently in the warm breeze. They walked together in companionable quiet until Hiroto stopped near the edge of a small bridge overlooking the koi pond near the academy. Naruko turned to look at him, raising a brow. Tired already, old man? But his face was serious. Thoughtful. Can I say something weird? She blinked, then nodded. Only if I get to laugh at it later. He didn't smile this time. I think I want to build something real with you, he said. Not just train together. Not just share meals. I mean, someday, more. Naruko's breath caught. She opened her mouth to respond but nothing came out. Because in that moment, she realized. She wanted the same thing. Not right away. Not in a rush. But in her heart, the idea of a life with Hiroto wasn't scary, it was comforting. A quiet kind of forever. She stepped closer, wrapping her pinky finger around his. Me too, she whispered. And from that day on, their world shifted. Their time together took on new weight. She'd wake up earlier to walk with him through the market. He'd bring her small things, dengo wrapped in a napkin, a wooden charm carved with her initials, a lucky coin he found on a mission. She started weaving him into her dreams, not just as part of her story, but as part of her home. They never rushed it. Love, to Naruko, wasn't a sprint, it was like tending to a fire. It needed attention. Kindness. Patience. Then, one soft morning, it happened. She stood at the edge of the Hokage monument, the wind catching her hair, her thoughts drifting. She'd been feeling strange lately, slower in training, a bit dizzy in the mornings, and somehow different. She thought it was chakra exhaustion at first. Or stress. But the feeling didn't go away. So she visited the medical clinic. When she walked out an hour later, the world felt like it had tilted on its axis. She pressed a hand gently to her stomach, her eyes wide, her thoughts spinning. She was going to be a mother. Naruko Uzumaki, loud, wild, brave, was expecting a child. She didn't cry. She didn't panic. She just stood there for a long moment, one hand over her heart, the other cradling the new life beginning to grow inside her. Then she smiled. Because for the first time in her life, she wasn't just fighting to be acknowledged. She was fighting for someone else. Someone who hadn't even arrived yet. And she knew, whatever came next, she wouldn't be facing it alone. The days that followed were quieter, not because life in Konoha slowed down, missions still came, training never stopped, but because something inside Naruko had shifted. She still laughed, still joked, still showed up late to Kakashi-sensei's meetings with a ridiculous excuse and a grin. But underneath all that, there was a new sense of stillness. A quiet knowing. She hadn't told anyone yet. Not even Hiroto. Not because she was hiding it, but because it felt sacred, like a flame she wasn't ready to share with the wind just yet. Her body was the first to change. Little things. She noticed her stamina dipping ever so slightly during sparring. Her appetite, usually endless, became more unpredictable. Sometimes she wanted salty broth and cold pickled plums, other times, the smell of grilled fish made her wince. She started to tire more easily, needing naps after long missions. At first she brushed it off, pretending nothing had changed. But her body didn't lie. It was changing, for someone else now. And slowly, her routine changed too. She stopped climbing rooftops at full speed. She started walking more carefully through crowded streets, hand resting gently on her lower belly even though there was no visible bump yet. At Ichiraku, Tucci noticed her eating slower, quieter. "You all right, kid?" he asked one afternoon as he handed her a small bowl of soba instead of her usual triple ramen order. Naruko smiled faintly. "Yeah. Just growing." Ayame gave her a longer look but didn't press. "You're glowing a bit," she said softly, tucking a strand of Naruko's hair behind her ear. "Different kind of energy." Naruko blushed, fiddling with her chopsticks. She wasn't ready to say it yet. Not until Hiroto knew. Her apartment, once messy and chaotic, began to transform. Slowly, intentionally. She cleared a corner of her room. Bought a second-hand shelf from a vendor in the market. Put up wind chimes and repotted Hiro, her stubborn little plant, into a slightly larger pot. She began reading more, books about healing techniques, chakra flow during pregnancy, even a worn-out parenting scroll she found at the library. She didn't always understand the medical language, but she tried. Because this time, she wasn't just learning for herself. Emotionally, it was strange. There were moments of fear, late at night, when the silence was too loud and the future felt too big. What if she wasn't ready? What if she didn't know how to be a mother? She'd never even had one herself. But then she'd feel it again, that warmth in her belly. A growing sense that someone was with her. Someone small. Someone she already loved with her entire being. She'd sit by the window and whisper softly to her stomach, voice trembling but full of wonder. "Hey. I don't know what kind of world you're coming into yet. But I promise I'll protect you. I'll be strong. For you. Naruko still trained, lightly, carefully. Tsunade-sama had started to notice her pulling back, and there were knowing looks exchanged between the older kunoichi and the young ninja who never asked for help. But no one said anything outright. Not yet. She knew, soon, she would have to tell Hiroto. She played it out in her mind a dozen different ways. Would he be scared? Would he step back? Or would he smile the way he always did, like she was the most important thing in his world? Her world was changing. Not in a loud, dramatic way, but in the quiet, unshakable way mountains shift over time. Naruko Uzumaki, once the lonely girl chasing recognition, was becoming something more. She was becoming a home. The afternoon sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled shadows across the training field where Naruko and Hiroto sat on a fallen log. The air was warm but gentle, carrying the faint scent of blooming jasmine from nearby gardens. Naruko's heart was pounding harder than after any mission. She had been rehearsing this moment all week. What words to say? How to say them? How to make sure Hiroto understood, not just what she was telling him, but what it meant. Hiroto was sitting beside her, tying the laces of his sandals, looking as calm and steady as ever. When he looked up and caught her eyes, she felt a strange mix of fear and hope swirl inside her. "Hey," she began, voice a little shaky. "There's something I need to tell you." He smiled softly, encouraging her. "You can tell me anything, Naruko." She took a deep breath, gathering all her courage. "I'm going to have a baby." The words hung in the air between them, light and fragile, like a new leaf trembling in the breeze. Hiroto blinked, then a wide smile spread across his face, the kind of smile that reached his eyes and made his whole face glow. "You're going to be a mom?" Naruko nodded, biting her lip to hold back a smile of her own. "Yeah. I found out a little while ago. I didn't want to tell you until I was sure." He reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "Naruko. That's amazing. I'm so happy." Relief and joy bloomed inside her. She squeezed his hand back, feeling the warmth of his touch steady her like nothing else could. "We're going to figure this out," he said quietly, "together." Her eyes shone. Together. For the first time, Naruko didn't feel the need to be loud or fast or strong all on her own. With Hiroto beside her, she felt ready to face whatever came next. Because love wasn't just a feeling. It was a promise. A beginning. And a new kind of adventure. The news of Naruko's pregnancy spread slowly through the village, like the soft ripple of a stone dropped into a quiet pond. At first, only a few close friends knew, Hiroto, of course, Kakashi-sensei, and Ayame, who insisted on bringing extra nutritious meals to Naruko's door every other day. "I'm telling you," Ayame said one afternoon, pressing a steaming bowl of miso soup into Naruko's hands, "you have to take better care of yourself. You're growing a whole little ninja in there." Naruko grinned, grateful for the kindness, but also stubborn as ever. "I'm not some fragile flower, Ayame." "No," Ayame laughed, "but even flowers need watering." Meanwhile, Hiroto became her quiet rock. He was there for the early morning headaches, the dizzy spells, and the moments when Naruko just needed to sit down and breathe. He carried her bags from the market and sat patiently through her endless questions about parenting scrolls. One afternoon, they spent hours clearing out a corner of Naruko's apartment, turning it into a small nursery. The space was tiny, but Naruko filled it with love. She painted the walls soft orange, the color of sunsets and hope, and hung a mobile above the crib, crafted from folded paper cranes that fluttered with every breeze. Even Sasuke noticed the change in Naruko. She was quieter, more thoughtful, but still fierce when she needed to be. One day, as they trained together, he offered a rare nod of respect. "You'll make a good mom," he said simply before turning away. Naruko blinked, then smiled. "Thanks." There were challenges, too. Some missions had to be postponed. She missed the rush of sparring, the thrill of chasing down a target. Sometimes she felt restless, her heart aching to run and jump and fight. But then she'd place a hand over her belly and feel a gentle kick, soft, like a secret, and it was enough. She was fighting now for two. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Hiroto and Naruko sat on the rooftop again, watching the stars blink awake. "Do you think they'll like me?" Naruko asked quietly. Hiroto smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Who? The baby?" She nodded. "They already do," he said softly. "Because you love them so much." Naruko's heart swelled. She rested her head on his shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her ear. The village wasn't just a place anymore. It was a home. A family. And with Hiroto beside her, Naruko knew they could face anything. Because love wasn't just a feeling, it was a promise, a strength, and the greatest adventure of all. Naruko's pregnancy journey was a quiet adventure filled with small miracles and tender moments. Each day brought new changes, some surprising, others challenging, but always wrapped in the steady support of those around her. Her mornings often began with gentle stretches taught by Tsunade herself, who had taken a special interest in Naruko's health. The legendary Sanin's presence was both reassuring and grounding. "You have to listen to your body, Naruko," Tsunade advised one afternoon, carefully demonstrating a simple breathing exercise. "Strength doesn't mean pushing through pain. It means knowing when to rest." Naruko was learning that, slowly. Throughout the village, kindness bloomed in ways she hadn't expected. The shopkeepers at the market always slipped her extra fresh fruits and herbs. The elders shared stories of their own children and grandchildren, their eyes twinkling as they gave Naruko blessings and advice. Even the young academy students looked up to her, their respect growing as they saw her adapt with courage and grace. One day, a small group of kids gathered at the training field, cheering her on as she did light exercises with Hiroto nearby. Their cheers made her laugh, her heart lighter than it had been in months. At home, Hiroto was a constant presence. He helped Naruko cook meals packed with nutrients, learning recipes from the village's best cooks. He'd read to her from scrolls about childrearing and chakra control during pregnancy, sometimes stumbling over the difficult words but always smiling when Naruko corrected him. "There's a lot to learn, huh?" he'd say, shaking his head. "More than I ever thought," she'd reply, leaning into him. But it wasn't always easy. There were days when Naruko's body ached from growing stronger to protect the new life inside her. She felt tired in ways that no mission could explain, and frustration sometimes bubbled up. On one such day, Ayame appeared at her door with a basket of freshly baked sweets and a gentle smile. "Even heroes need a break," she said softly. "Let me take care of you today." Naruko didn't protest. She sat back as Ayame tidied her space, brought her tea, and hummed quietly. It was one of the rare moments Naruko allowed herself to rest fully. The village didn't just care for her because she was expecting a child, they cared for her because she was family. When the village held its seasonal festival, Naruko was wrapped in a soft kimono gifted by Lady Tsunade herself. The colors were gentle, the fabric light, and the village gathered around to celebrate with her. Friends brought her gifts, handmade clothes, soft blankets, little toys for the baby. Even Sasuke handed her a small wooden charm carved with a protective seal, his usual stoic face softening just a bit. That night, as the lanterns floated into the sky, Naruko and Hiroto stood hand in hand. The world felt vast and full of promise, and the village, her home, felt stronger than ever. Naruko's journey was far from over, but she knew she wouldn't walk it alone. As the days grew warmer and the blossoms turned vibrant shades of pink and white, the village began preparing for a festival unlike any other, one to celebrate Naruko, the brave kunoichi who was soon to become a mother. The news had touched every corner of Konoha, and the villagers wanted to show their love and support in a way as big and bold as Naruko herself. Tents and colorful banners fluttered along the streets, laughter spilling out from every corner. Children practiced songs and dances, their voices bright and full of hope. The marketplace overflowed with fresh fruits, handmade gifts, and fragrant flowers carefully woven into garlands. Naruko felt a nervous flutter in her stomach as she stepped out into the heart of the village, dressed in a soft, flowing kimono dyed with warm orange and deep red, colors that reminded her of sunsets and new beginnings. Hiroto stood beside her, eyes shining with pride and tenderness. The festival was a surprise planned by her friends and neighbors. As she walked through the crowd, faces she knew, and some she didn't, greeted her with warm smiles, bows, and gentle words. "Naruko. You've always been a light for us," called one elder, pressing a small pouch of herbs into her hands. Ayame handed her a cup of sweet tea. "For strength and calm." Even the academy students performed a special dance, weaving through the crowd with graceful movements, their laughter infectious. At the center of the festival stood a beautifully decorated altar, adorned with symbols of protection and growth. Lady Tsunade herself stepped forward to speak, her voice both gentle and strong. "Today, we honor not only Naruko's courage but the new life she carries, a symbol of hope for our village's future," she said, her eyes meeting Naruko's. "May this child grow strong, and may Naruko continue to shine as the heart of Konoha." Tears welled in Naruko's eyes as the villagers began to chant blessings, their voices rising like a warm breeze that wrapped around her. Later, as the sun dipped below the horizon and lanterns were released into the sky, Naruko and Hiroto found a quiet spot overlooking the festivities. I never imagined this, Naruko whispered, her hand resting on her belly. Neither did I, Hiroto replied, squeezing her hand gently. But you deserve all the love they're giving you. You're amazing. Naruko smiled, her heart full. She looked up at the glowing lanterns drifting upward, carrying wishes and dreams. For the first time, surrounded by friends, family, and the village she had always fought to protect, Naruko felt truly at home. The night was soft and still, the village wrapped in a blanket of stars. Inside Naruko's cozy apartment, the world felt small and safe, a peaceful refuge from the noise of life outside. Naruko sat cross-legged on the tatami floor, a warm shawl wrapped around her shoulders. Hiroto was beside her, his hand resting gently on her growing belly, feeling the subtle movements of the new life inside. They didn't need words at first, just the quiet comfort of being near each other, the steady rhythm of their breathing, the faint sound of the wind whispering through the paper screens. After a while, Hiroto broke the silence, his voice low and soft. Have you thought about what you want to teach them? Our child? Naruko smiled, her eyes shining with hope. I want them to be brave, like you. But also kind. To find their own way, even if it's different from ours. He nodded, squeezing her hand gently. I want to teach them how to protect what matters, to fight not for glory but for love. She leaned her head against his shoulder. We'll teach them together. For a moment, they simply sat there, wrapped in the warmth of their shared dreams. The future was still unknown, full of challenges and surprises, but it no longer felt scary. With Hiroto by her side, Naruko knew she could face anything. Because sometimes, the quietest moments hold the greatest strength. The days grew shorter and the gentle chill of early autumn settled over Konoha. Naruko's belly was round and full now, a constant, living reminder of the new life soon to join the village. Though her strength was tempered by exhaustion and the aches that came with the final stretch of pregnancy, her spirit remained unyielding. Still, the quiet moments were becoming more frequent, the times when she'd sit by the window, hand resting protectively over her stomach, watching the world move with a slower rhythm. It was during one of these moments that the village came together in a way Naruko hadn't expected. Word had spread that her due date was near, and the villagers, friends, neighbors, even those she barely knew, decided to offer their support. Not through grand gestures, but with simple acts of kindness woven into everyday life. One morning, Hiroto knocked softly on her door, carrying a basket filled with fresh bread, rice, and homemade pickles. Behind him trailed Ayame, her hands full of wildflowers gathered from the fields beyond the village. We thought you could use a little sunshine, Ayame said, her smile gentle but full of warmth. Naruko's eyes filled with tears as she accepted the gifts, overwhelmed not by the items themselves, but by the love they represented. Thank you, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. As the days passed, small surprises became a comforting pattern. The local blacksmith stopped by to repair the latch on Naruko's front door so it wouldn't stick, knowing she shouldn't strain herself. The bakery left a basket of sweet treats on her doorstep, wrapped carefully with a note that read, "For strength and sweetness, for you and your little one." The young academy students choreographed a small dance and performed it just outside her window, their laughter and energy like a balm to her tired heart. Even the elders of the village took a moment to check in, sharing quiet stories of their own children and offering advice wrapped in gentle humor and sage wisdom. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in hues of purple and gold, Hiroto arrived at her apartment with a handmade wooden cradle he had been quietly crafting in the village workshop. The simple yet sturdy piece was smooth and polished, carved with delicate symbols of protection and hope. Naruko's breath caught as she ran her fingers over the wood. "It's beautiful," she said softly. Hiroto smiled, his eyes shining with pride. "It's just the beginning." They sat together, the cradle between them like a promise. Outside, the village was alive with the sounds of preparation and celebration, not just for a festival, but for the new life that was soon to join them all. That night, Naruko lay in bed, the quiet hum of the village surrounding her like a gentle lullaby. Hiroto held her hand, their fingers intertwined as the stars blinked awake outside the window. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, from the lonely days of childhood to the fierce battles she had faced, to this moment filled with hope and love. Naruko's heart was full. The village was her family now, and together, they would welcome the newest spark of light into their lives. And as sleep claimed her, she whispered a silent, "Thank you," to the village, to Hiroto, and to the life growing within her, that she was never truly alone. The crisp air of early autumn settled deep into the village, carrying with it the scent of drying leaves and warm wood fires. The days were shorter now, and the village of Konoha hummed with a gentle anticipation that seemed to ripple through every corner. Naruko's belly had grown full and round, a soft curve that told the story of life blossoming within her. Though she moved more slowly and with great care, her eyes still held the same fierce spark that had always defined her. But even the strongest needed rest, and the village was ready to support her every step of the way. Each morning began with the familiar rhythm of neighbors stopping by. Some came with fresh baked bread or bowls of nourishing soup, others brought herbs and teas carefully chosen for comfort and strength. Every gift was wrapped with a note or a smile that spoke volumes, of hope, of community, of shared joy. Hiroto was there constantly, his presence a steady anchor in the whirlwind of preparations. He helped pack a small bag with essentials, a soft blanket embroidered with little orange foxes, a tiny wooden rattle, and a book of lullabies. Together, they set up the cradle he had crafted, placing it carefully near the window where soft sunlight could spill over the baby's first bed. The village healers came often, checking on Naruko with gentle hands and kind words. Lady Tsunade herself visited one afternoon, bringing with her ancient remedies and calm assurance. "Rest as much as you can," Tsunade advised, her voice soft but firm. "Your strength now lies in patience." Even the young ninja in training took part. The academy students organized small chores to help lighten Naruko's load, running errands, tidying her home, and sharing stories to keep her spirits bright. Their bright faces and boundless energy brought a refreshing lightness to the days. The local market held a small celebration in her honor, with colorful banners and lanterns hung in the alleys where Naruko used to run and play as a child. Vendors offered special treats, and the village elders recounted tales of hope and resilience, reminding everyone of the strength in community. One evening, as twilight bled into night, Hiroto and Naruko sat together beneath the soft glow of paper lanterns. He gently cradled her hand, feeling the faint flutter of their child moving within. "We're almost there," he whispered. Naruko nodded, her voice filled with quiet wonder. "I know. It feels like the whole village is waiting with us." He smiled. "Because they are. And so am I." They shared a peaceful moment, wrapped in the warmth of the village's love and the promise of new beginnings. The days ahead held unknown challenges, but with every hand that reached out in kindness, Naruko felt stronger, ready to welcome the next chapter of her life. Because in Konoha, family wasn't just those bound by blood. It was every smile, every helping hand, every whispered wish for a safe journey. And Naruko knew, no matter what came, she would never be alone. The night was calm and filled with the soft glow of lanterns as Naruko's time had finally come. The village had grown quiet, the usual chatter replaced by a hushed anticipation that seemed to hold its breath. Hiroto was by her side, his hand steady in hers, his eyes full of quiet strength and love. The room was warm and filled with the gentle scents of healing herbs carried by the village healers who had come to support her. Naruko's breath came in slow, deep waves as she focused on the soft rhythm of her heartbeat, the steady presence of Hiroto, and the promise of the life she was about to meet. The moment stretched and folded like a gentle wave, sometimes calm, sometimes strong, but always moving forward. With each breath, each heartbeat, Naruko felt the love of her village wrapping around her like a protective cloak. She remembered the faces she had seen, the smiles, the kindness, the steady hands that had helped her prepare. Then, with a final, quiet breath, a soft cry filled the room. The baby's first sound was small but fierce, a tiny spark lighting up the night. Naruko's eyes filled with tears, not from pain, but from joy. Hiroto leaned close, whispering, "We did it." The healer gently placed the newborn into Naruko's arms, swaddled in a soft blanket embroidered with orange foxes, the very one Hiroto had made. Naruko held the baby close, feeling the warmth and life of this new little heart beating against hers. The room seemed to glow brighter, filled with hope, love, and the quiet promise of a new beginning. Outside, the village lights twinkled, a silent celebration echoing in the night. Naruko smiled softly, knowing that this was just the start of their greatest adventure. In the weeks following the baby's arrival, the village of Konoha blossomed around Naruko and Hiroto like a living, breathing family, their care and kindness wrapping around the new parents in a steady, unbreakable embrace. The early days were filled with soft lullabies sung by neighbors who came bearing gifts, warm blankets hand-woven by the elders, baskets of fresh fruits and healing herbs, and sweet rice cakes lovingly prepared by the market cooks. Friends took turns visiting, not only to offer practical help with chores but to share stories and laughter that brightened even the most sleepless nights. The village healers checked in regularly, their gentle presence a comforting reminder that Naruko was never alone on this new journey. The academy students, inspired by their brave role model, often stopped by with handmade toys and colorful drawings, their innocent joy bringing lightness to Naruko's heart. Hiroto grew into his new role with quiet strength, supported by older fathers in the village who shared advice over tea, offering wisdom drawn from years of experience. Together, Naruko and Hiroto found their rhythm amid the soft chaos of feeding, soothing, and watching their child grow, always bolstered by the warmth of their community. Even the village leaders, from Lady Tsunade to the shinobi guarding the borders, took moments to drop by, reminding them that this child was a beacon of hope for all. In the marketplace, whispers of the new baby's name spread with smiles and blessings, and lanterns were lit in the evening sky, symbolizing the bright future ahead. Through every diaper change, every quiet midnight moment, and every first smile, Naruko and Hiroto felt the invisible threads of love and support weaving them ever tighter into the fabric of Konoha's family, proof that in this village, no one walks alone, and every new life is celebrated as a precious gift to be cherished by all. Life settled into a beautiful, if sometimes tiring, rhythm for Naruko and Hiroto as they embraced their new roles as parents. The days were marked by the soft cries of their baby, tiny fingers curling around their own, and the quiet magic of watching a new life grow with each passing moment. Mornings often began with the warm sunlight filtering through the shoji screens, casting gentle patterns across the room as Naruko cradled their child close, humming lullabies she remembered from her own childhood. Hiroto would prepare simple meals, always mindful of Naruko's need for rest, and together they shared whispered conversations about dreams for their family's future. The challenges of sleepless nights and endless diaper changes were softened by their laughter and the shared pride in each small milestone, the first smile, the first grasp, the soft coos that spoke of discovery. The village remained a constant source of support and joy, with neighbors dropping by to check on them, bringing delicious meals, or simply offering a friendly smile and words of encouragement. Sometimes, friends and family gathered for quiet evenings filled with stories and gentle music, the baby wrapped safely in Naruko's arms as they celebrated the simple happiness of togetherness. Through it all, Naruko found a new kind of strength, one not forged in battle, but born of patience, love, and the unwavering bond of family. Hiroto stood by her side, his quiet devotion a steady light guiding them both through the beautiful, messy adventure of parenthood. Together, they built a home filled with warmth and laughter, where the past met the future, and every day was a gift treasured beyond words. As the seasons turned and their child grew, the village of Konoha found even more reasons to celebrate the little family that had brought so much hope and joy to everyone. One of the earliest celebrations was the Oka Izome, a traditional ceremony marking the baby's first taste of solid food. The entire household bustled with excitement as Naruko prepared colorful dishes, rice, fish, vegetables, all carefully chosen to symbolize health and prosperity. Friends and neighbors gathered in their home, bringing gifts wrapped in bright cloths and sharing stories of their own children's milestones. Hiroto held the baby gently, guiding the tiny spoon toward eager lips, while Naruko's eyes shone with tears of happiness and pride. The warmth of the gathering wrapped around them like a comforting blanket, a reminder that their family was never alone, but surrounded by a community that loved and supported them. Later, as their child began to take tentative steps, the village held a lively festival to mark this joyful milestone. The streets were decorated with banners and lanterns in shades of orange and gold, echoing the colors that had become symbolic of their family's journey. Children from the academy performed dances and sang songs, their energy contagious and uplifting. Naruko and Hiroto watched, holding hands tightly, as their little one toddled among friends and cousins, laughter bubbling like a clear stream. The elders blessed the child with words of wisdom and hope, reminding everyone that every step forward was a step toward a bright future. Food stalls lined the streets, offering sweet treats and warm soups, and the air was thick with the scent of blooming flowers and joyous celebration. It was a day filled with smiles and hugs, where the entire village came together not only to honor the child but to celebrate the enduring spirit of family and community. One particularly special occasion was the Shichi Go-san festival, a traditional rite of passage for children. Though still young, their child was celebrated with a beautifully crafted kimono, embroidered with fox motifs, a symbol of protection and cleverness, just like Naruko herself. The village gathered at the shrine, the soft sounds of bells and chants filling the air as blessings were offered for health, happiness, and strength. Naruko and Hiroto stood side by side, their hearts swelling with gratitude as they watched their child receive prayers and gifts from friends and neighbors. The festival was more than just a ceremony, it was a joyful affirmation of life, community, and the promise of many adventures yet to come. The laughter of children echoed long after the last lantern was lit, a melody of hope that wove itself into the very fabric of the village. Throughout these celebrations, Naruko and Hiroto found their love deepening, not just for their child, but for the village that had become their extended family. Each gathering, each smile, each shared meal was a thread in the tapestry of their lives, connecting past and future, hardship and joy, dreams and reality. Together, they learned that while the journey of parenthood was filled with challenges, it was also rich with moments of magic, woven from the simple, profound love that surrounded them every day. In the quiet corners of their home, Naruko and Hiroto began to nurture a special family tradition, one that blended the strength of their past with the hopes for their child's future. It started with the simple act of storytelling, a nightly ritual where the soft glow of lantern light would fill the room, and the child, wrapped in a cozy blanket, would listen wide-eyed to tales of heroes, friendship, and courage. Naruko's voice carried the weight of her own journey, filled with lessons learned and dreams passed down, while Hiroto added stories of the village's history and the bonds that held them all together. These evenings became sacred moments, a bridge connecting generations and a way to teach kindness, bravery, and the importance of community. As the child grew, this tradition evolved into something even more tangible. Every month, on the night of the full moon, Naruko, Hiroto, and their little one would gather with close friends and family in their garden. They called it the Moonlight Gathering, a time to share food, laughter, and hopes under the silver light. The village elders often joined, bringing their wisdom and blessing, while the children played nearby, their joyful sounds mingling with the gentle rustle of leaves. Together, they would light paper lanterns, each inscribed with a wish for the child's happiness and safety. The lanterns would then be released into the night sky, floating like stars reborn, a symbol of guidance and protection. On special occasions, Naruko would prepare traditional dishes passed down from her own family, while Hiroto strummed a small wooden flute, filling the air with melodies that seemed to dance with the lantern light. The child learned to appreciate the beauty of these simple moments, the warmth of shared meals, the comfort of familiar songs, and the strength found in belonging. It was more than just a tradition. It was a living promise that no matter where life's path might lead, the love and support of family and community would always be there, steady and true. This tradition became a cornerstone of their family's identity, a quiet celebration of life's ongoing journey. And as their child's laughter echoed under the moonlight, Naruko and Hiroto knew they were passing on something precious, not just stories or rituals, but a legacy of love, courage, and the unbreakable bonds that define home. Life flowed gently for Naruko, Hiroto, and their child, each day bringing new discoveries and deeper connections. Their home was filled with laughter, soft chatter, and the quiet rhythms of routine, mealtimes shared at a low wooden table, afternoons spent wandering the village paths, and evenings wrapped in stories and song beneath the ever-watchful stars. With each passing season, the child grew stronger and more curious, eager to explore the world that their parents had so lovingly built around them. One evening, as the family sat together by the fire, Hiroto looked across at Naruko with a smile full of nostalgia. "Do you remember when our little one took those very first steps?" he asked softly, his eyes sparkling in the flickering light. Naruko's gaze softened, her mind drifting back to that unforgettable day. It had been a bright morning, the air crisp with the promise of spring. The village was alive with the buzz of daily life, but for Naruko and Hiroto, the world had shrunk to their small garden, where their child had been practicing standing up with trembling determination. Hiroto had held a hand out, steady and encouraging, while Naruko clapped and cheered quietly from nearby. Then, with a sudden burst of courage, their child took a shaky step forward, one, then two, before tumbling into Hiroto's waiting arms. Tears had welled in Naruko's eyes as she watched this small but mighty victory, feeling the weight and wonder of every step toward independence. The village had joined in their joy soon after, neighbors sharing smiles and words of encouragement, reminding them that every child's journey was a shared blessing. Back in the present, Naruko reached over and squeezed Hiroto's hand. "That day felt like the whole village was holding their breath," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Like every step was a step not just for our child, but for all of us." Hiroto nodded. "And it still is. Every day, we walk this path together." Their child, now toddling nearby, looked up with wide, curious eyes, a living reminder of the journey unfolding before them. As the fire crackled and the night deepened, Naruko and Hiroto felt the full circle of their lives, their past struggles, their present joys, and the bright horizon ahead. Through every step, every challenge, and every celebration, they knew that family was their greatest strength, the heart of every story yet to be told. One crisp morning, as the golden light spilled through the village streets, a new face arrived in Konoha, Aiko, a gentle and skilled herbalist known for her wisdom and kindness. Word of her arrival spread quickly. She was said to carry ancient knowledge passed down from her grandmother, alongside a heart open to healing both body and spirit. Drawn by tales of the village's close-knit community and the recent joy surrounding Naruko's growing family, Aiko soon found herself invited into their circle. From the moment Aiko stepped into Naruko's home, her calm presence was like a soothing breeze. She carried baskets filled with fragrant herbs and carefully prepared salves, offering her help with both Naruko's recovery and the child's well-being. Her laughter was soft but sincere, and her eyes sparkled with warmth as she listened to the family's stories and shared her own. It wasn't long before the child took a liking to her, reaching out with curious fingers to touch the colorful plants she brought, fascinated by the vibrant scents and textures. Hiroto welcomed Aiko's presence, grateful for her gentle guidance and the way she seemed to understand the quiet worries and joys of new parenthood. Together, they crafted teas and remedies that eased Naruko's tired muscles and soothed the baby's restless nights. But beyond her skill, it was Aiko's friendship that truly blossomed, an unspoken support that lifted their spirits and wove new threads of trust and care into their family's life. As days turned to weeks, Aiko became more than just a healer, she became a cherished part of their story. Whether sharing quiet moments in the garden or joining the village celebrations, her presence was a reminder that family could grow in many ways, shaped by love, kindness, and the simple act of being there for one another. As the weeks unfolded, Aiko's gentle presence became a quiet source of strength for Naruko, especially during the delicate moments when motherhood felt both beautiful and overwhelming. One afternoon, when Naruko was feeling particularly exhausted from nights of soothing their restless baby, Aiko arrived quietly with a small bundle of herbs wrapped in soft cloth. She settled beside Naruko, her voice calm and comforting as she prepared a warm tea designed to ease tension and restore energy. Naruko accepted the cup with a grateful smile, feeling the fragrant warmth seep slowly into her tired limbs. Watching Naruko cradle their sleeping child, Aiko offered quiet advice on natural remedies to soothe common infant discomforts, soft compresses for teething, gentle oils for calming baths, and lullabies sung with the rhythm of breathing. But more than the herbs or the healing knowledge, it was Aiko's patient companionship that brought comfort. She understood the tender vulnerability of new motherhood, the blend of joy and fatigue, the fierce love mingled with quiet fears. Often, she would sit with Naruko in the garden while the baby napped, sharing stories of her own family and listening with a gentle heart as Naruko spoke of hopes and worries. One evening, as the sky turned a soft pink and the village settled into twilight, Naruko found herself holding their baby close, feeling the tiny heartbeat steady against her own. Tears slipped silently down her cheeks, not from pain, but from the overwhelming love and the weight of the journey she was on. Aiko sat beside her, offering a hand and a kind smile. "You're doing beautifully," she whispered. "This love you carry, it's the strongest medicine of all." In those quiet moments, surrounded by the soft sounds of the village and the steady breaths of new life, Naruko felt a renewed sense of peace. With Aiko's gentle guidance and the unwavering support of Hiroto, she embraced the tender chaos of motherhood, knowing that every challenge was met with love, and that they were never alone. One sunny morning, the gentle light of dawn spilled through the shoji screens, filling the room with a soft golden glow. Naruko woke to the sound of laughter, light, bubbling, and full of life. She smiled before opening her eyes, hearing the familiar voices of Hiroto and their child coming from the garden. Curiosity and a spark of excitement stirred within her as she rose, careful with the soft roundness of her belly. Stepping outside, she found Hiroto seated on a low wooden bench, holding their child who was clapping happily, eyes wide with delight. Nearby, Aiko knelt in the grass, her hands weaving a delicate crown of wildflowers, petals of purple, yellow, and white tangled in her fingers. The child's laughter grew louder as the flower crown was gently placed atop their head, wobbling just enough to make everyone smile. Naruko's heart swelled at the sight, a picture of peace and happiness that felt like a balm after all the challenges they had faced. She joined them, reaching down to cradle their child, who reached up to grasp her finger with a small, determined grip. The family sat together, sharing stories and soft songs, the warmth of the morning sun wrapping around them like a loving embrace. Aiko shared tales of flowers and their meanings, teaching the child how each petal symbolized something special: courage, joy, kindness. Hiroto sang a gentle tune, his voice steady and soothing, while Naruko hummed along, the melody a new lullaby woven from their shared moments. Time seemed to slow in that perfect morning, no rush, no worries, just the simple magic of togetherness. As the child's laughter echoed across the garden, Naruko realized how deeply this life had transformed her, filling every corner with love, hope, and the promise of tomorrow. In that moment, surrounded by the people she loved most, Naruko knew that this was the true heart of family, joy found in the smallest moments, strengthened by the bonds that held them close, no matter what the future might bring. As the seasons changed, the world around Naruko, Hiroto, and their child seemed to open wide with endless possibilities, inviting them on little adventures that stitched joy and wonder into the fabric of their family's life. The child's curiosity was boundless, each day brought new questions, new discoveries, and new reasons to explore. On bright mornings, Naruko would bundle the little one into a soft sling, and together with Hiroto, they would wander through the vibrant village markets, where colorful stalls overflowed with fresh fruits, handmade toys, and the laughter of friends. Their favorite journeys, however, were to the outskirts of the village, where the forest whispered ancient secrets and the gentle breeze carried the scent of pine and wildflowers. Here, the child learned to walk on soft moss, chase fluttering butterflies, and listen to the songs of birds perched high above. Hiroto would lift the child onto his shoulders, their laughter ringing through the trees, while Naruko followed, her eyes bright with love and pride. Sometimes, they'd pause by the sparkling stream, dipping tiny fingers into the cool water and marveling at the smooth stones beneath. Aiko often joined these excursions, sharing her knowledge of the plants and herbs around them. She taught the child how to recognize the healing properties of leaves and flowers, turning every walk into a joyful lesson. The child's eyes would widen with fascination as Aiko demonstrated the gentle touch needed to gather herbs without harming the plants, a quiet lesson in respect for nature's gifts. On one memorable afternoon, the family discovered a hidden grove filled with tall, ancient trees whose branches wove together to create a natural canopy. They made a little picnic there, spreading soft cloths on the mossy ground and sharing simple treats while the sunlight danced through the leaves. It was a place of magic and peace, where time slowed and worries melted away. Through these adventures, Naruko and Hiroto saw their child blossom, not just in strength and curiosity, but in kindness and wonder at the world's beauty. Each new step, each bright smile, was a reminder of the precious gift they had been given and the countless stories yet to be lived together. The village, the forest, and the love they shared became the foundation of a life full of hope, courage, and endless discovery. As Naruko and Hiroto's family continued to grow and thrive, two new figures quietly entered their lives, each bringing unique gifts and stories that would deepen the bonds of their community and challenge the family in unexpected ways. The first was Renji, a spirited young shinobi recently assigned to the village's protective squad. Renji was known for his unwavering loyalty and fierce determination, but also for a mischievous streak that often got him into trouble. Though he was serious about his duties, there was a warmth beneath his tough exterior, a kindness that showed most clearly when he interacted with children. Upon meeting Naruko's family during one of his patrols, Renji was immediately drawn to their gentle strength, often stopping by to offer help or simply share a laugh. His presence reminded Hiroto of the importance of balance, between duty and family, strength and compassion. Over time, Renji became a close friend, offering support during challenging moments and learning from Naruko's quiet resilience. The second new character was Yumi, an artist and storyteller who had recently moved to Konoha seeking inspiration and peace. Yumi's gentle nature and vivid imagination brought a new kind of energy to the village gatherings. She often visited Naruko's home, weaving enchanting tales that sparked the child's imagination and helped Naruko reconnect with the joy of simple wonder. Yumi also had a talent for capturing moments through delicate sketches, and soon a collection of drawings began to grow, portraits of the family, the village, and the forest adventures they shared. Her artistry became a treasured part of their lives, reminding everyone of the beauty found in everyday moments. Together, Renji and Yumi enriched Naruko and Hiroto's world, offering fresh perspectives and deepening the sense of belonging that made their family, and their village, so strong. Their arrival set the stage for new stories of friendship, growth, and the challenges that come with opening one's heart to others. It began with a single idea, Yumi's gentle suggestion during one of her evening visits. "What if," she said, glancing between Naruko and Hiroto with a soft smile, "we held a gathering to celebrate the turning of the seasons? A festival that honors both the growth in our village and the roots that keep us strong." Inspired, the idea bloomed like spring after a long winter. Plans unfolded swiftly. With Yumi designing beautiful paper banners and lanterns, Renji rallying the younger villagers to help with setup, and Aiko gathering fragrant herbs and blossoms to adorn the festival grounds, the entire village felt the pulse of something special coming to life. Naruko and Hiroto, their child between them, helped every step of the way, Naruko baking traditional sweets passed down through her own childhood, Hiroto carving wooden charms shaped like leaves, foxes, and stars to gift to attendees. The day of the festival arrived with clear skies and a gentle breeze. The heart of the village was transformed, lanterns swayed on strings overhead, their colors mirroring the changing leaves, tables were lined with warm dishes, sweet dumplings, and delicately arranged tea sets. Music filled the air, soft flutes and the rhythmic beat of hand drums echoing off the wooden walls of the village homes. It was more than just a celebration of a new season, it was a celebration of growth. For the villagers, it marked the passing of peaceful days and the hope of many more. For Naruko and Hiroto, it was a quiet triumph, a living reminder of how far they had come, from the quiet days of early parenthood to this joyful moment, surrounded by love. Yumi stood on a small stage, telling a new story she had written just for the occasion, A tale of a brave fox spirit who, after years of wandering alone, found a village where her heart could rest and grow. As she spoke, Renji stood nearby, his usual playfulness softened by the moment, quietly keeping watch over the children playing by the lantern-lit paths. Aiko blessed the space with herbs and whispered prayers for peace and continued harmony. She paused before Naruko and Hiroto's child, brushing a small, protective mark on the little one's forehead, her eyes warm and full of love. Then came the lantern release, a tradition Naruko had helped begin. Each person lit a lantern and whispered a hope or memory into it before releasing it into the twilight sky. Naruko knelt beside her child, holding the delicate paper frame in her hands. "This one," she whispered, "is for every new beginning, and for the family we've built." Together, they watched it rise, joining a sea of golden lights that floated up like glowing stars reborn. As the night deepened, laughter mingled with soft music and flickering lights. The village felt closer than ever, not because of how long they had lived beside one another, but because of the love and stories that now bound them together. And for Naruko, standing hand in hand with Hiroto, their child pressed happily between them, Aiko smiling nearby, Yumi sketching by lantern light, and Renji chasing a giggling child with playful mock shouts, it was clear. This wasn't just a festival. It was a moment stitched in time, sacred and lasting, a memory that would live on not in the banners or songs, but in the hearts that beat as one under the same sky. The child, now around 6 years old, was becoming more than just the light of Naruko and Hiroto's lives. They were beginning to shine on their own, their spirit catching the attention of villagers with every small, confident step. With wide eyes that always seemed to be searching for something new, and a mind constantly spinning with questions, the child was the very picture of life blossoming. School was just beginning for them, and though Naruko felt the tug of letting go, she and Hiroto walked their child to the academy gates with proud smiles. The child turned often to wave, their little feet bouncing with a mix of nervous excitement and pure energy. Renji, now occasionally helping with academy training, was there to greet them with a reassuring grin and a mock salute. "You've got the spirit of a warrior," he whispered to the child, ruffling their hair. "But remember, a real warrior is kind, too." The classroom became a second home. The child took easily to learning, fascinated by ninjutsu theory and stories of the past. But more than anything, they loved the team games, the thrill of working together, of discovering how each person brought something unique to the group. It reminded them of their family, where everyone's role mattered. Mama Naruko's gentle strength, Papa Hiroto's patience and creativity, Auntie Aiko's wisdom, and Aunt Yumi's imagination. Evenings were filled with retellings of the day, dramatic reenactments of how they got their first scroll wrong or bravely helped a classmate who tripped during a run. Naruko listened with glowing pride, often brushing a few stray leaves from her child's hair while nodding with quiet amusement. Hiroto would chuckle, drawing their stories into his journals, sometimes adding tiny drawings in the margins, a habit he picked up from Yumi. But school wasn't without its hard moments. One day, the child came home quieter than usual, their head lowered. They had stumbled during a sparring match and were laughed at, not cruelly, but enough to make their bright heart dim just a little. That evening, Naruko didn't give advice right away. She just sat beside them in the garden, her hand resting gently on theirs. After a while, she said softly, "When I was your age, I didn't have anyone to catch me when I fell. But you do. You've got us. And every fall is just a step toward something stronger." The child looked up at her, nodding slowly. That night, Hiroto told a story about a young fox who stumbled again and again, but every time, she learned something new, until one day, she ran faster than the wind itself. Renewed, the child returned to the academy with their usual spark, now tempered with resilience. Over time, they began to stand out, not for perfection, but for kindness. When a classmate was left out, they were the first to offer a hand. When a scroll was dropped, they were the one who picked it up. Their teachers spoke fondly of them, often mentioning their rare mix of determination and empathy. The child was becoming something extraordinary, a blend of Naruko's enduring heart, Hiroto's thoughtful soul, and the light of the village itself. The academy days passed quickly, each one adding another brushstroke to the child's growing sense of self. They became known not just for their skill or cleverness, but for the way they lifted others. Friends gravitated toward their steady presence, younger students looked up to them as someone who listened, who cared. As graduation neared, the village buzzed with pride. The children who had once wobbled through their first jutsu were now standing tall in uniforms, ready to step into the world as the next generation of shinobi. Naruko's heart ached in the most joyful way. How many nights had she held her child asleep, dreamed for them, feared for them, loved them so deeply that it ached. The final test was not about strength. It was a challenge designed to bring out leadership, cooperation, and compassion. When the time came, the child's team was given a mission simulation: navigate a forest path, protect a precious scroll, and reach the goal without losing it. Where others rushed, eager to show off, the child paused to listen to the wind, the footsteps, the voice of the forest that Naruko had once taught them to honor. They didn't win by being the fastest. They won by noticing when their teammate was limping and stopping to help. By staying calm when others panicked. By being exactly who they had always been, a reflection of love, courage, and wisdom grown in quiet, steady hands. On graduation day, the sun was high and bright, a perfect blue sky stretching endlessly above. Families gathered in the courtyard of the academy, and the village seemed to pulse with excitement. Renji stood with the instructors, watching proudly. Aiko and Yumi waited nearby, adorned in soft festival colors, holding gifts of herbs and freshly drawn sketches. Naruko stood at the front with Hiroto, both dressed simply but beautifully, symbols of their journey. As the child stepped forward, wearing their headband for the first time, they searched the crowd. Their eyes found Naruko's, and in that one shared look was everything. Every sleepless night, every song hummed, every scraped knee kissed, every hug held a little longer than needed. The child ran into her arms. Naruko caught them, her laughter bubbling up through tears that spilled freely now. Hiroto wrapped them both in his embrace, and together they stood beneath the village sky, the wind rustling through leaves above them like a blessing. Aiko approached, placing a soft sprig of rosemary and jasmine on the child's shoulder. For remembrance and joy, she said quietly. Yumi handed over a small, folded sketch, a simple image of the child standing hand in hand with their parents beneath a great tree, lanterns floating above them. Later that evening, the village held a small celebration. Lanterns once again rose into the sky, this time with wishes not just for the future, but thanks for all that had come before. Naruko stood quietly as she watched the golden lights drift upward, her heart full beyond words. Her child, a shinobi now, stood beside her, strong and bright. And though the story would go on, new challenges and triumphs waiting ahead, this moment, this sun-drenched day filled with laughter, lanterns, and love, would remain etched in their hearts forever. A family, whole and shining beneath the endless sky. Dear YouTube family. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching and supporting my content. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, it really helps a lot. Much love. 6 Path Weeb.